I'm Brandy. I am the leader of the Tooele Family Network out here. It's been a crazy time learning how to do all this stuff, so thank you for bearing with us. So we have the Autism 101 workshop. Now I'm completely unprepared because we're renting it. But I am so glad that we're still able to provide these services for our families in need. My daughter is autistic level 2 with intellectual and language impairments, so I'm still learning, and we've had her diagnosis for a few years now, and so I think this is a great workshop and opportunity for all of us to learn and kind of grow together and see what options are out there for us. So thank you so much for being willing to do this workshop off for us, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, and you can go ahead and get into it whenever you're ready.
All right.
Thanks, Brenda.
My name is Colleen Kenny, and I have a 21-year-old daughter with autism, and she's on the pretty severe end, so she needs full support 24 hours a day for most of her living tasks. We are going to, just talk about Autism 101. We are a family-to-family, I'm from Utah Family Voices, and we're a family-to-family health information center. So that means that all of my colleagues have children with either differing abilities or disabilities and special needs. And so we're always here for you guys. We've all been through, between all of us, we've been through what you're going through, and it's kind of nice to share this. So thank you for the opportunity. So what we're going to try and focus on is really, again, helping your family deal with a diagnosis of a new autism diagnosis, and identify some of the common reactions of family members and friends and family, maybe understand the challenges that you might have in accepting the diagnosis and navigating this new stuff. Also, hopefully helping you know how to take care of yourself and your family. And also, and a really important one, especially these days, is to learn how to be a wise consumer of services. And we'll go over all of that and what that means. So basically, autism is a very broad spectrum disorder, but it's characterized by 3 main challenges, and they would be categorized into social skills, behavior, and communication. And that's what the DSM-5 is looking for. That's a diagnostic criteria. And according to the Centers for Disease Control, autism affects an estimated 1 in 54 children in the United States today. I think Utah's numbers are a little bit higher than that. It's hard because most of us, we didn't know that there was anything different with our kids when we bring them home from the hospital. We have this teeny sweet little baby, and we love them so much, and we know we're going to love them forever. And then somebody, maybe it's a doctor or a neighbor or a spouse, notices something different about them. And even if we're the ones who go in search of that diagnosis, it still ends up being kind of a shock. And then we get those fun aftershocks we've all learned about recently. You get this other one, you get, oh my gosh, well, what do we do now? And you get another one, and oh my gosh, what's going on now? Oh my gosh, how are we gonna find these things? And so it's kind of this ongoing thing. Dr. Goldstein is really great, and he just has some really great insights, and he understands that this is going to affect families. And we try to help families get through all the different stages. And so I want everyone to kind of think, and I don't know, we could have maybe had everyone learn how to do a little hand raise or something, but you can just think or put a yes in the chat as you consider some of the feelings that you went through. So what happened to you when you first heard the diagnosis? Did you have a therapist come to you and ask you how they could help you? How many of you went out and found support from a grandparent or a friend or your clergyman? If you didn't, why not? Did you just not have time? Were the needs of your child already so overwhelming that you couldn't share that? Maybe it was just too overwhelming. And then some of us do retreat. We don't talk about it at all. And if you did go out and look for support, where did you go? Did you find comfort in the literature that you were able to find? Were you able to find what you needed online? There's so many responses to these questions. It's such a huge range. And none of our feelings or reactions to this are going to be right or wrong. We all are going to deal with this news in different ways. And we'll talk about some of the real common ones. An important thing to remember, though, is that as human beings, and especially as parents and caretakers, we are resilient. We can learn resiliency even out of need. And in talking to some of my colleagues about this subject, about just the idea of resiliency, some of them really resonated with the literal description of this. You know what I mean? Like, we get compressed and then we have to stretch. And sometimes we feel like we're being stretched to the absolute max, but then we can come back and we can come back and we can remember that we can do that. The one that actually kind of more resonated with me perfectly was this idea of buoyancy. Like, I remember feeling just pulled down and at the last minute knowing I can make it to the top, I can make it back up. And that buoyancy really kind of resonated with me a little bit. Another friend talked about bungee cords and just stretching and stretching and literally being the one that can just hold it all together. And sometimes being able to be that person and having this resiliency can be good and it can save your family. And sometimes it can just be too hard. And again, neither one of those is going to be wrong. They move through these slides. So again, all of these common reactions are normal and they could be common among friends or family members. A friend said when her son was diagnosed, one of the best things she heard from a doctor was that this isn't going to change your son. He's still going to be Adam. And it was so important for her to hear him say that because she knew she was always going to love every little quirky thing about him. And that was enough. That was perfect for her. And that in her mind got her through some of these things. But it's going to be common for a lot of us to feel a sense of loss. You know, for me, Maya's, her different abilities and behaviors came on so strong, so early that it didn't hit me until she was 16. That, you know, that sense of she's not going to date, she's not going to drive, she's not going to have the same social life that I had as a 16-year-old girl. That hit me that late into it, you know. And some of it's going to be, some parents are going to have a hard time with the fact their kids are not going to play baseball or play musical instrument, and we are allowed to have that feeling and that sense of loss. I also have lots of friends that went through denial. I heard for a long time, even after her diagnosis, like, there's nothing wrong with her. Some kids just talk late, you know, but now she's 5 and she's not talking, and she's 9 and she's not talking. And so we have to work through some of those denial things from friends or coworkers or family members, as well as our own feelings of denial. And at one point, it's going to be common to feel very devastated and overwhelmed. Devastated that there's not better services, or that it's not easier to get the things that you know your child needs and deserves. There'll be times when you're going to be overwhelmed worrying about the future. It's hard enough for us to get through day to day, let alone having to worry about what's going to happen to our kids in the future, and finding the things that they need now as opposed to what they need in the future. I know I had some anger towards a professional who used some not kind words in describing my daughter's disabilities. And that was something that stuck with me for a long time. It's very common to have strained marital and family relationships. This takes a lot of time and a lot of emotional energy, and that will affect other parts of your life. And you just need to be able to be prepared for that and learn ways to be resilient and to work through that. And my kids have learned, we don't call a disruption in a family routine, but we're definitely a different family. We have different priorities and we have different rules in our house than they recognize our other friends' houses and stuff. One thing that will become a common theme is you will remember your reaction to the initial diagnosis. When I look back, I can very clearly remember. And again, I asked some colleagues if they remembered, and a lot of them remember either sadness or fear or uncertainty, thinking, will they be okay? Will this make them different, or how different? Some people said, I immediately wanted to know if this was something we were supposed to fix. For us, back in the day, it gave us a name. We appreciated the label. It was a relief to know why her behaviors were the way that they were. It wasn't just me worrying about different delays. It was a lot of validation for me, actually. Cute picture. Cute picture. So there's been lots of studies, and we know that families go through all those stages of discovery in the diagnosis. Distress can display as grief or preoccupation with guilt or anger. Parents with kids with autism spectrum disorders face a lot of uncertainty, trying to understand the diagnosis or denial of the diagnosis. And again, just trying to either suppress negative feelings about your kid. This is someone you love so much. And it's hard to try and differentiate the child from the autism from the I'm trying to think of a word, the symptoms of some of the other things that they will probably have. There's also a lot of isolation, and a lot of that is self-made. It's hard to talk to people about your struggles, and that's something that we really need to work on as parents and as humans. And we need to recognize these things in ourselves so that we can find ways to work through it. Because again, the big one is it's for the kids, it's for our kids. We need to be able to answer other people's questions. We need to attempt to be able to support them and help our family and friends and neighbors to do so as well. A big one that we talk about too is, if you've met one individual with autism, you've met one individual with autism. You can take these classes all day long from every organization in the state, and you will still just need to learn about your child's autism. You're going to have to figure out your kids' needs. And there's so many common things that our kids will go through that it's nice to have a community. But an interesting thing about this picture is both of these gorgeous gentlemen are on the autism spectrum. One has an official diagnosis, and with it is some physical challenges as well, while another one has a very successful family and marriage and job, and is still very affected every day by autism. So I'm sorry, going back to resiliency, I just like this a lot. When we learn how to become resilient, we learn how to embrace the beautifully broad spectrum of the human experience. So we can't forget that as we're talking about, again, this is a spectrum. There's going to be one end to another, and we can all find some common things to help each other out. One of the other things I wanted to talk about is, are there pros and cons to having the official diagnosis? And there could be. What you want to consider is, what are you looking for in a diagnosis? What are you needing from that? Sometimes a diagnosis, again, helps parents understand the child's behaviors. They can really validate or confirm that there are some problems or some areas that the child would benefit from receiving services for. And that diagnosis can help you figure out those very specific and correct treatments. There are some families that have to consider if the effect of a label on a child, how that would affect them. So if they're not needing specific services, do they need this label, and would it hurt them or limit maybe their expectations or expectations of them in the future? So those are things you can consider and again, talk to people about. So if you are a couple, or if you want to, I mean, even any kind of a relationship, you need to be taking care of yourself and as well as the people around you. You need to take time, and this is hard, to talk about issues that aren't related to your child or to your children. I know with my husband, we barely have enough time sometimes to discuss certain things. So what takes priority? So-and-so has an appointment here. We need to pay this doctor bill. You know, you run through the list of these priorities, and some of them tend to weigh heavier on the side of your child with special needs. And so we need to remember to have some time and to take that care in talking about things that aren't related to that. Because again, we talked about the resilience earlier, and we just all need a little break once in a while. Once that gets stretched, we really do need to just be able to come back in, decompress. I know that it's difficult, especially for us with kids on the spectrum or with behaviors, but really try and reach out and use babysitters or respite care to give yourselves the breaks that you need from parenting. And you can always call us Utah Family Voices. We have some just some kind of out of the box ideas on how to help you find those things or to take that time. But definitely don't be afraid to share your frustrations and your successes as a parent as well, and communicate your needs. Don't expect your partner to read your mind. If you need to schedule this time to talk about the issues that do concern your child, maybe that helps, because it gives you a very specific time that's limited to get those important things discussed, but that it doesn't consume dinner time, or that it doesn't consume, you know, some of the other private time that you guys really need. And use a professional for clarification. If you either disagree or don't understand something that you're trying to communicate to your partner, feel free, you know, don't be afraid to use professionals. Definitely talk about with not just your fears and your worries, but your dreams and your hopes for your family and for your child. And then share with each other what kind of support you feel like would provide the most comfort to you. If you're a single parent, find support with friends or family. I'm very fortunate to have a very close group of friends that that don't have kids with special needs, and that I don't talk about my kids with, as well as close friends that share all these same issues and problems with. And so it's a nice balance. But that's outside of my marriage even. So again, I'm very fortunate to have that support. And so I encourage you to try and find that or to build that for yourself. There's lots of parent support groups out there, and they can be a really great thing to get involved in. Social media, that's probably the one great thing I feel that it provides. And so if you want more information on those things, you know, again, a good Google search, you can find them. There is a lot of local, just nice support groups. Oh, sorry about that. All right. And then again, we want to make sure that we model and teach good resilience to our kids. An important thing is to really help them and talk to them so that they can understand. Make sure that siblings understand that they can share the information and their feelings with others when they're ready, and that this isn't something to be ashamed about, and to help them understand that this is nobody's fault. I know, so I have 3 kids, And my autistic daughter is my very oldest. And my next son we had such a great experience with him as a child. Like, he was so natural as an advocate and as this perfect little sibling who could describe autism to kids on the playground. While my youngest daughter actually has a lot harder time with it. When she was little, she was very vocal about not wanting to be a caretaker to girls that were bigger than her. And she's really grown into a better caretaker and, you know, supportive sibling. But kids are also going to all have those different feelings, and you need to be able to validate those and help them understand that. There are resources available for that as well. They used to hold a lot of what was called sib shops. I'm not sure what is available for that, but there are programs to help kids and siblings as well, to help them build resilience. And again, I think that being honest with them and giving them good information about it is also important. That will empower them. Again, a colleague had a story that was, it's kind of cute to think back on as a little girl, but it was quite enlightening for the mother when she heard her daughter talk about her brother, who actually also has a trach. And she explained to some kids, he has a trach because of his autism. And she realized she hadn't had that discussion with her daughter. She hadn't explained these things to her, and how important that was to give her that information and to help her learn about her brother, and it helped them to be closer. So again, it's funny to talk about goods and services when we're talking about services for our children, but we are consumers of this as a product for our children. And they are goods and services, which are all the doctors that we're going to see, all the evaluation and treatments, all the educational things that we're going to have to participate in. Some of our kids are going to need additional equipment to help them. And of course, health insurance and just everything else that comes with it. We use these goods and services. And just because something is more expensive or doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to provide a better outcome. So we can choose these things wisely for our kids and for our families. So what goods and services do families of children with autism spectrum disorders purchase? Well, it's these things. It's healthcare items and information things, therapies. But please do your research and know that there is no miracle cure. There's no magic pill. So you think about what kind of equipment or what kind of services would help your child. It might be an augmentative communication device. It could be something to help them communicate. It could be sensory toys. Maybe a weighted vest or a blanket would help them. There are lots of specialized learning programs. Some are free and some are extremely expensive. There is software that provides picture exchange communication products. Sometimes our kids even need mobility equipment. So make sure you're looking for lots of alternatives. And again, you can always call Utah Family Voices at the Utah Parent Center for help with things in those categories, or for some resources or referrals. And a big, huge, major service that we need to consider in going into all this is our healthcare insurance. So it's going to be important for you to know your plan and know what it will cover. And so some more little tips to wise consuming is to maintain some good information. Make sure that you have the information on your child readily available when you are looking into these different therapies and different services. And it's not easy to remember everything. You're going to be asked questions about some things by your doctors and by the professionals, And you could really benefit from having it all in one place, because a lot of it's going to be very, you'll have to repeat the same things over and over and over again. So you don't need or want to keep a record of every visit your child has, but there are key pieces of information that can be helpful. And actually, I think we can put a link in the chat maybe on the care notebook from the medical home portal. It has a really good kind of form already made for you about some of those really key pieces and highlighted areas of things that you want to keep. You definitely want to have, especially if your child is young, this is something you're going to want to keep and maintain for the future, for anything else that they try and apply for. Definitely your major evaluation records. A summary by the psychologist is important. If you have any other significant consultations, maybe genetics visits, we went through a lot of genetic counseling. And so that information I keep pretty together. Any other major tests, you might have neuroimaging, you might have sleep studies. Definitely keep a list of medications that you've tried or that they are on, particularly if they are psychotropic, and make sure you list them with what they're taking them for, because again, everything gets diagnosed and prescribed, but you want to keep a list of what the medication is, what it's being used for, as well as some of the side effects that you are personally worried about. Of course, you want to keep their immunization record, and then a list of all the child's providers and their contact information. So if they have a speech therapist and an occupational therapist and a primary care physician and their dentist, make sure you have all those just highlighted with their names, numbers, and contact information. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about health insurance, but you want to keep a paper trail as well for any pending bills, pre-authorizations, and appeals. All the fun stuff. You want to keep your IEP. That's a legal document that says what a school will be providing for your child. So you'll always want to have a copy of the current IEP readily available, as well as if your school has any additional healthcare plans for them. That's good to keep all together. So we all have the idea of a perfect healthcare provider. This isn't specifically mine, I'm not just saying that, but the more important questions are, can they provide a family-centered or medical home environment? And a medical home just means to collaborate with the patient and the family and look at it as a big picture, and being able to accommodate the needs of the family and the patient makes such a huge difference on the outcome. So being able to communicate with the outside specialist to provide, specific documentation. So we'll go into that a little more specific. So what you should, so your expectations with your healthcare system should kind of come from 4 concepts that you need to understand. And so your family-centered care is just a clinician that should be able to work with you to help figure out what your plan of care will be. This could just be like your general pediatrician, and they will help to guide you with information and suggestions while keeping the whole family's needs in mind. So it's somebody that you want to be able to have a pretty good relationship with. And sometimes a family decides that a treatment may not fit into the big picture for the family, and that's okay, because again, remember, this is something that you have to do as a whole family. Your interdisciplinary collaboration is the teamwork. So your child will now have this team, and all the members in it, so the doctor, your specialists, the teacher, maybe additional IEP team members, therapists, co-parents, even siblings can all collaborate. And collaboration is that key piece to making things work really smoothly. And having open communication is really nice. Having a doctor who is willing to communicate with the other treatment professionals is important. So, and then make sure all of that collaboration does come back to you, and that you have someplace that you have that together. A medical home is, again, that's looking at that big picture. It's not like a place. It's not it's more of a concept. It's an attitude in the medical community. So an example is, so my daughter, her doctor's office where she sees her pediatrician, also has that he works with, and we are able to invite to her, like her well child checkup, is a developmental specialist. Her psychiatrist comes in. We also have her support coordinator, which is kind of like a case manager for her, come in. We have any of the other staff that's working for us at the time. She has some supported living support. They all come to that appointment with us. And that makes such a huge difference for her to have that support and for everybody to be talking about the same thing at the same time. You also want to consider your physicians and whether they are culturally competent to help your family. We have a huge diverse community. It's a very diverse world, and a lot of different cultural beliefs and religious beliefs need to be respected, and you need to make sure that your healthcare provider can do that for you as well. And just to kind of highlight that whole section again is, so a family-centered, collaborative, culturally competent medical home approach is the type of primary care practice that will be the most helpful for our kids. And so if we as parents use this medical home approach, we can create it with our filing system and with, how we organize the things that our children are participating in as well. We can think ahead to help our doctors have the time and availability to do what they need in the best interest of our sometimes pretty complicated kids. So to work with your clinician on what to expect, and there's I think, Tina, is there a handout for that on medical home as well? I think it's a one sheet thing that will help the physician or the clinician understand what to expect from your child when you're going into an appointment. So call ahead, let them know you might have additional needs, or it might be a little bit more difficult to transition your kids from the car to the waiting room or from the waiting room to the appointment. If you have time or if you have excessive questions, make sure you write them down to see if your doctor is available to maybe have you email those questions in advance so that he can have them ready, and it might save him a little bit of time at the appointment. They have a pretty specific set amount of time for each appointment. And so, yeah, if we set an expectation that we either of what we need out of that appointment or that we need a little bit more time, that can help them in, again, tackling those things. Make sure you give them feedback. If they are referring you to a specialist, let them know how that went. That's also going to tie back into creating that medical home atmosphere. And also have them help you tackle funding issues when you have them. If there's just excessive testing and needs that maybe your insurance isn't covering, ask your clinicians for help in prioritizing things and making sure that you understand the need for everything that you're getting. So to move on, let's see, complementary and alternative medicine, CAMs. These are the treatments that we sometimes choose to use that may not be traditional medicine or therapies. They might not be evidence-based, so we want to be super careful. Anything that's going to offer you a cure, or if they're promising you the world, make sure you're super aware of that. Always work with your child's primary care pediatrician to know and understand what treatments you're considering. But again, that's going to be an important piece of that relationship that you have with them is if those things are important to you, you need to discuss those with them, and he needs to be able to work with you on that. I know we also get, sorry, a lot of really well-intentioned suggestions. I know back in the day it was, I heard on Oprah that, and you know, I'd get all these things emailed to me, and you know, oh, MLM group, I heard this thing that said, and so you'll get a lot of that. And I do encourage you to do your own research, and also maybe ask a friend to double check your research. You know, if it seems like it's kind of crazy or out there, maybe it is. Ask somebody you trust and to maybe help you double check into those things. So a framework for treatment decisions of any type, whether it's, you know, your real traditional things or something complementary, make sure that you're thinking about what are your targets? What are you trying to gain from this treatment? What are the end results? Then you definitely want to think about any side effects. Is this a medical thing? Side effects could be, yeah, medical. It could be the cost of it, the lifestyle. Maybe this is just too hard. Back in the, you know, early 2000s, a gluten-free, casein-free diet was very expensive, and it wasn't readily available in regular grocery stores. It was something that lifestyle-wise and on behavioral side, is the time or the pain worth it to your kid? And then again, these anticipated impacts, what they learn or what they get out of these therapies, is this for short term or is it for long term? If you're in a crisis situation and you just need a short term immediate fix, those are going to be decisions that are driven differently than the things that you're looking for in long term results. And then, does it fit in with the rest of the treatment plan? Does it fit in with other things that you're already doing with your kid, or does it fit in with the lifestyle of your family? And then a super important one is the scientific validity. Does the theories make sense? Do these research findings? Not all research is equal. You want to look for the term evidence-based. It's really important. And again, maybe ask somebody else to look at it for you, because we're so desperate that sometimes we want things for our kids so badly that it's, you know, you don't see the forest through the trees. So I know that if Christina's on, I hope I'm doing this right. She does this really, really well. When it comes to your healthcare insurance details, this is another language, and I know that it's hard, but it's super important for our families to understand our healthcare insurance details. Most of us will get like the packet once a year that has like the new changes in it or the highlights of what is covered. You want to call your insurance provider and actually ask for a contract or see if it's available online. So you should be able to have access to the actual healthcare contract that you carry. You will want to look at exclusions. Some insurance companies are still using diagnostic exclusions. So there will be certain things that my younger children qualify for under my private insurance that my daughter with an autism diagnosis does not qualify for just because of her diagnosis. There will also be benefits that she'll be able to receive because of it as well, though. Make sure to read the fine print. You know, there's lots of fine print. Also, be aware of the provider panels. Know how to access it and know how to check the requirements if you are to have to go off panel or off, you know, provider lists. You should know your family as well as individual lifetime limits, not just yearly limits. And also medication panels, because there will be preferred medications. There will be a copay structure for different classes of medications, and those will all affect your bottom line out of your pocket costs. Just another cute picture.
Hey, Colleen.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Christine. I am on.
Good.
I just wanted to kind of pipe in. Yeah, I just wanted to pipe in and just kind of explain that insurance thing as well. Now, we all know the trifold brochure we get saying, you know, how much our co-payments are and everything, but this is something that you can call your HR people and tell them why. Just say, I really want to understand our insurance contract and what are exclusions and what are allowed. And it is something that you can request, and with current laws, you are able to get that. So some HR people might not know what the heck you're talking about. So you may have to go one step further, but that is a possibility.
Thank you so much. Thanks. So for those of you where maybe insurance or funding is an issue, you can call again Utah Family Voices and the Family to Family Health Information Centers for resources and referrals on Medicaid. And if your family doesn't qualify for Medicaid, there could still be Medicaid waivers. There's disability Medicaid. There's some Shriners programs. There's foundations that help with speech and things like that. There's also, each hospital and clinic usually has a financial department. And if it's something that's super important for your family or for your child, you can access them and maybe see if they're available to negotiate a rate or to offer a finance plan. There's also other community programs that you can try to apply for grants and things like that, so that you can get the help and the therapies and the things and the services that your child needs. Another great one is the education system. This will be a whole nother world. If you have other kids, it's not like putting your other kids into the school system. It's a very hard and legal process. And so I really stress and suggest get some training. Utah Parent Center does a lot of training on IEPs and on 504s and on accommodations that are available to your child. And we also have parent consultants available for every single district. So again, in Tooele, you have Brandy and you have Christine that are always going to be available for you to help with these education systems. It's also important to understand your child's needs. Some of our kids, we're going to have to fight to get them academic needs. Some of our kids' needs are going to be more self-help and skill and community based. So we're going to understand what our child's needs are out of the education system as well. And when we go into this, we do need to be understanding. There's only, this is a public school system that I think we're talking about now, but you do want to be firm. You are your kid's advocate, and it's important for you to know your rights and responsibilities to your child first. And so as we kind of just to wrap up everything, sorry that went really fast. Think like a consumer. These are products that we have a right to request and to, have expectations of. Be informed. Definitely define your expectations. Understand why you have these expectations, and then make the system work for you. Gather out the systems and all the funding mechanisms, and then frame your decisions around those. And so again, understanding those mechanisms and how to defray costs for services, and then definitely learn about the education system. And remember, you are resilient. You can do this. This is going to be, there's so many more positive things that have come out of autism for us than the negative. It has not been a cakewalk. We have a really difficult situation, and still I can honestly say I think more positive things come of our life because of autism than anything else. So I hope that this has been helpful and informative, and it hasn't felt too rushed. I know we also are doing a little fun fundraising through some artist donations. If you know anyone that would like to donate some art or crafts to our auction that will be held later this year, please contact us and let us know. Another way you can support our networks is if you use Amazon for shopping, especially right now, who isn't? But if you use smile.amazon.com, and it does not cost you any extra, Amazon donates to the Utah Parent Center. You can set your settings to donate to the Utah Parent Center. I know a lot of these other shopping platforms do the same thing. PayPal, every time I use PayPal, I also donate $1, and it's just easy and automatic. So those are just some easy ways for us to get some support. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate Colleen doing this for our Tooele families and other families that are joining in. We are here for you. Even though I don't have specifically, my daughter's diagnosis doesn't involve autism, I am happy to take questions and calls. We are trained, and we have these wonderful Utah Family Voices ladies at our fingertips, so we can connect with our colleagues and help any way we can. So I really appreciate those that logged on tonight.
Thank you.
Because the hardest thing that I'm having right now is my 3-year-old now mimicking the negative behaviors of my 10-year-old when she has her meltdowns. And we try to use language with my 3-year-old to help her understand that, you know, this behavior is not appropriate, but there's a reason behind it. I mean, we've all gotten used to talking about our feelings very in depth, exactly when they happen and how we feel them. Like, ow, that hurts, that made me mad, you know, I stubbed my toe and now I'm upset. Things like that. Anytime anything happens that makes us feel any type of way. But it's been very hard when you have a 10-year-old screaming and banging heads, and then a 3-year-old going, wait, why can't I do that?
Well, right, especially when it's a very effective way of getting attention and getting things that you want, and you're watching that happen. There's going to be certain things that I feel like it'll be very important to have family rules on, and then I think it's okay to allow ourselves to have different rules for different kids if we can communicate that to our children. And again, that's just something that I've had to go through and helped our family a little bit. I don't know if it works for everybody, but yeah, and again, explaining to siblings, there's a way to talk to a 3-year-old about his brother, you know, on their level, and explain, again, like you said, the reasons and the purposes behind the behavior, that's his way of communicating, and you might have a better way of communicating, or a different way of communicating, I should say. And so, you know, yeah, mom would like you to use your way of communicating this. Right. But I'm sorry, that's a hard one.
It is. And today, because we're trying to have her have more responsibilities in the household, and one of the things that she's supposed to do that nobody likes doing is pick up dog poop. And she was out there having trouble trying to scoop it, because even that holding the shovel that holds the poop in one hand and scoop in the other, getting that rhythm down can be difficult. And sometimes she's very vocal about it, and she was having a tantrum over it. And my 3-year-old goes, Mom, Cadence needs you. And I'm like, and I had to sit there and explain. I said, I know she's having difficulties, so we're going to let her have a minute. And then mommy goes, helps her. Sometimes we have difficulties, huh? And I just, like, because she's 3 and now starting to, you know, talk and understand. And it's a whole new world for me having to wait. Not only do I have to explain her to the world, I now have to explain her to my other children. So
I think that our siblings have so much, again, that resiliency they pick that up so differently and better than we do as adults, for sure. And that's something that I hope my kids carry with them. That's for sure.